Welcome back to the Last Awakening, gentlemen and my friends and ladies and all kinds. All kinds. This is the Last Awakening. I'm your host, Joshua David. Let's get into it.
Unlocking the secrets of the universe.
Welcome to the Last Awakening podcast.
Oh no, I think I've lost my mind. I think I've lost it all. Oh no, I think I've lost my mind. I think I've lost control. Welcome to the awakening.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are in Ezekiel 20:25. So I gave them other statutes that were not good, and laws through which they could not live. This is Yahweh, the God of the Old Testament, saying this. So I gave them other statutes that were not good, and laws through which they could not live. Yahweh gave them statutes that were not good and laws through which they could not live. King James, therefore I gave them also statutes that were not good and judgments whereby they should not live. Let's go to the Young's translation of this as well. We'll give you 3 of them this time. And I have given to them statutes not good. Yahweh, the one you believe is the same Father as the one Jesus talked about, the God of the Old Testament, Yahweh being the Father of Jesus. You really think that God, the Father of Jesus, is Yahweh, and that he gave people evil things to do? It says it right here in his own words. I gave them statutes that were not good and judgments by which they do not live. His own words. But you believe this is the Father of Jesus, when Jesus told you Yahweh was the devil. Your father is the devil, he told the Pharisees. They were worshiping Yahweh. He told you in John 9 that the Pharisees, John told you in John 9 that the Pharisees were disciples of Moses. They were following exactly what Moses said, what Yahweh told him, right? Imagine that. Yahweh gave them statutes that were not good. And just if you don't believe me, let's go to verse 26. I being Yahweh, defiled them. Now he's telling you what he done. I defiled them. Well, let's look up the word defile. Defile. Sully. Okay, let's look up what sully means. Damage the purity or integrity of. Oh, synonyms means to stain or blemish. Who defiled them? Yahweh defiled them. But you believe this is the Father of Jesus, the God of the Old Testament, who defiles his own people, right? Why'd he do it? I defiled them through their gifts, the sacrifice of every firstborn. You don't even believe that they were sacrificing their own kids. Yet Yahweh just told you that they were sacrificing their kids. They were passing them through the fire of Moloch on his authority. He defiled them. He gave them the statutes. Let's read on. That I might fill them with horror. He thought this God, one who calls himself God, that if he told them to do these things, that they would be so horrified at what they were doing, so that they would know that he is Yahweh. We'll read it in the King James. And I polluted them in their own gifts. Yahweh polluted them in their own gifts. Because that's what a loving father would do, right? He would cause you to sin through the gifts that he gave you, right? Come on. Come on, Christians. In that they cause to pass through the fire all that openeth the womb, the firstborn, that I might make them desolate, to the end that they might know that I am Yahweh. Let's go down here to the youngs. And I defiled them, Yahweh defiled them, in their own gifts, by causing them to pass away every opener of the womb, so that I may make them desolate, so that they know that I am Yahweh or Jehovah. But you think this is the father of Jesus, right? The anointing of Jesus, not Jesus the man. But you believe that Jesus, the anointed one, that this is his father. The anointing's father is not Yahweh. I want to make that clear. Yahweh in Jesus, the anointing in Jesus. Let's make that clear. Two different fathers. Two different fathers. Jesus talked about his father, the one that was already in him from day one. He is the light that lighteth every man coming into the world. Who is that light? Jesus? No, the anointing in Jesus. The Father in Jesus. The invisible. People saw Yahweh numerous times throughout the whole Old Testament. Paul saw him in the New Testament on his road to Damascus. You know, the one who blinded him with snake scales. Yahweh defiled his own people so that he could horrify them into returning to him. And why does he care about his name if he's truly the God that we're supposed to be worshiping? Because in 1 Corinthians 13:4, love is patient. Yahweh's not patient. Love is kind. Yahweh defiled his own people, gave them statutes that were not good. He does not envy. Yahweh says he's a jealous God. He does not boast. Yahweh boasts all the time. He is not proud. Yahweh is proud all the time. Verse 5. It does not dishonor others. Yahweh defiled his own people. It is not self-seeking. Doesn't seek himself. who's always worried about people worshiping him, and I got to have everyone worship me, and they got to know my name. Does this sound like the Father to you? Does this sound like the type of God that you want to worship? One that isn't everything that's 1 Corinthians 13, 4 and 5 and 6 says is love, which God is love. The Father is love. Yahweh is none of these things. It is not easily angered. Yahweh got angered every time somebody didn't do what he said. Every time. And killed them most of the time. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love keeps no records of wrongs. Yet, in Ezekiel, Yahweh's telling Ezekiel to talk about how in the wilderness, he done all these things, and these people wouldn't listen. And blah, 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 blah. He constantly reminds you of everything you've done wrong. Throughout the whole Old Testament, Yahweh's constantly telling you every time the Jews done anything wrong. How many times in the New Testament does Paul write about these same events that happened thousands of years ago, how the Israelites in the wilderness did not even listen to Yahweh then? But they're not keeping records of wrongs? Yahweh's not? It's not the Father of Jesus. Different God. He calls himself a God anyway. Let's go to verse 6. Love does not delight in evil. For someone like Yahweh to say he doesn't delight in evil, he sure the crap does a lot of evil. Pick any book, the Old Testament. You will constantly see his evil works everywhere. All of them. But rejoices in the truth. When have you ever read a verse in the Old Testament or heard someone preaching about Yahweh in the Old Testament and how Yahweh just rejoiced in the truth? When? He didn't. He was constantly condemning everybody. He destroyed the whole earth with a flood. Killed everybody. But this is the God of love? This is the God of mercy instead of sacrifice? No, Yahweh's the God of sacrifice. Always has been. He wanted to kill everybody in the wilderness. Moses said, don't. I can make these stubborn people listen. Give me a chance. A man commanding a God. Except that Jesus told us we were the gods. We were the rulers. And we got trapped inside these bodies. Let's talk about something else. Jesus said that the devil was a liar from the beginning. And that he was a murderer from the beginning. Who did he murder? Have you ever thought about that question? If that's correct in our Bible, right? The word that we have, that would mean that Cain was the devil, right? We consider him the first murderer, right? It was in the beginning when that happened, right? It wasn't. He isn't. The first person murdered that Jesus was talking about, the anointing in him spoke out from him, was Yahweh killing Adam. The first Adam was male and female together. Yahweh puts Adam asleep. Adam never woke up. The spirit Adam never woke up. Never. Unless he found out who he was, that he was anointed already, that he had the Father inside of him, and that he woke himself up. Because that sleep was a sleep of death, as though he was dead. And that's happened to all of us here in this realm, where we're at. And until you wake up, that anointing inside of you that you've already had your whole life, you were not born again. It's not asking something to come into you. It's awakening what's already in you. Yahweh put Adam asleep, the spirit Adam asleep, inside the flesh. He murdered the spirit of Adam. That's why Jesus told you had to be born again. You had to reawaken the spirit inside of you that's been there since coming into the world. He lighteth every man that cometh into the world. Fascinating. Once you wake up and awaken that spirit inside of you, you start to understand all these things, that Yahweh is not the Father. He is one calling himself God or the Father, and he's not. He lied to you from the beginning that he was God. He lied to you and murdered Adam, the spirit person, because we were created in the image of the Father. Spirit, unseen, right? The unseen. No one that's ever seen the Father, because he's a spirit. We were created like him, right? In his likeness and in his image. That spirit within Adam was put to sleep, never to awake. Well, he was hoping that we would never awake, so that we could continually be slaves on this earth to him, to Yahweh. Eve was not taken from a rib. She was taken from his side. Now, I know what you're thinking. Yeah, that means over here on the ribs. No, it doesn't. The two of them were one. He literally took her from the backside of him. She was there. This is why you always want someone to have your back. This is why guys look for women who have their back. This is why a woman searches for a man that has her back. Why is this important? Why do you think? How did you come about this? If you have the full armor, you're fully anointed, you have the full armor of the Father, and your partner does too, and she's on the backside of you, how then can anyone attack you from the front or the rear? Imagine that. But Yahweh was very crafty, very conniving, and man, I'm telling you, most of the people in this world have been following the devil their whole lives, and they think they're following the Father. And they're not. With that, I am your host, Joshua David, as always. Do the Father's will. Find out who you are. You are anointed. You have been since you came into this world. You have the Father inside of you. You've always had him there since you came into this world. You are sovereign, you are free, you are divine. You are a God. We all are God. The Father that's inside of us. That's who we really are. If you get a chance, look up the song. I believe it's called, I think it's I Am Human. I think it's I Am Human. If you get a chance, look that up and tell me what you think of it in the comments. As always, do the Father's will.